It was supposed to be another rally, another night of predictable lines and roaring applause. But in the middle of his speech, Donald Trump paused, shifted his tone, and dropped a bombshell about autism that no one in the audience saw coming. Gasps rippled through the arena. Supporters froze mid-chant. And for the first time that night, the crowd wasn't shouting. It was silent. Stay with us, and don't forget to subscribe, because what Trump revealed live changed the entire room in seconds. The rally was built for noise. The silence came uninvited. It was a massive arena, packed wall-to-wall with thousands of supporters. Red hats dotted the crowd like a sea of identical signals. Handmade signs waved high above heads, and the echo of chants bounced from every corner of the steel rafters. The stage itself gleamed under white spotlights, draped with the American flag, screens overhead flashing live in bold red letters. Donald Trump entered with his usual bravado. The music blared, the chants roared louder. USA, Vision, USA, USA. His stride was confident, his hand raised high, pointing into the crowd with that familiar rhythm. It felt like every rally before, scripted by habit, fed by applause. He started with the usual cadence: immigration, jobs, the border wall, energy independence. Each phrase cued chants, each pause filled with cheers. It was a familiar dance, one that had played out dozens of times across the country. But then, about halfway through, his tone shifted. He slowed his pace, lowering the paper in his hand. His voice, still amplified, softened. You know, there's something else we need to talk about tonight. Something serious. Something a lot of people don't want to mention. The audience quieted, unsure where he was going. Some still held their signs high, but the chanting tapered. The camera zoomed closer, sensing a shift in tone. Trump's eyes swept across the arena. We've got a problem in this country that's bigger than people admit. It's about our children. It's about autism, and nobody wants to touch it. The crowd gasped. Phones went higher into the air, recording every second. For once, no chant followed. No applause filled the pause. Just murmurs, confusion, and silence. Trump leaned harder into the podium. They don't want you to talk about it. Doctors, politicians, the media. But I've seen the numbers. I've talked to the families. And I'll say what nobody else will say. The arena was still now. Tens of thousands waited it, breathless, for what he was about to add. The bombshell dropped. The silence cracked. Trump leaned both hands on the podium, his voice carrying a rare seriousness. The rates of autism in this country are skyrocketing. Skyrocketing. And nobody is telling you the truth about why. The audience shifted uneasily. Supporters who had been shouting minutes before now exchanged glances. Some crossed their arms. Some raised phones higher, unsure whether to clap or wait. The atmosphere thickened. The sound of thousands of people holding their breath at once. Trump pointed to the press section, lights glaring down on rows of cameras. They don't cover it. They won't touch it. Because it makes too many people uncomfortable. Because it challenges too many industries. But you all know it. Families know it. Parents know it. Something is happening to our kids. The gallery stirred, murmurs, scattered shouts of agreement, even a few cheers. But the crowd wasn't in rhythm anymore. It was fractured, uncertain. Trump pressed harder, his cadence sharper now. When I talk to families, when I talk to mothers and fathers, they tell me the same thing. Their children are suffering and nobody in Washington wants to even say the word. Gasps carried through the arena. Some supporters started clapping nervously. Others stayed frozen. Reporters scribbled furiously, underlining "say the word." Trump's hand slammed the podium lightly. Well, I'll say it. Autism. And I'll say something else. We're going to find out what's causing it. We're going to hold people accountable, and we're not going to be silenced anymore. The room erupted, not in chants, but in fragmented reactions. Some cheered wildly, fists in the air. Others whispered to each other, stunned, phones still rolling. The sound was uneven, jagged, a mix of shock and raw approval. The cameras cut to faces in the crowd, a mother with tears in her eyes, a veteran shaking his head in disbelief, a young man muttering, "Did he just say that live?" Reporters' pens scratched faster. A producer whispered into his headset, "We've got the clip." "That's it. Cut it, feed it, run it." Trump straightened, his tone fierce. "They'll call me reckless. They'll say I shouldn't talk about it, but I will, because the truth matters more than their headlines." The silence cracked into noise, but it wasn't the usual synchronized chant. It was fragmented, raw, real. The room was no longer predictable. He waved the paper. The crowd leaned in. Trump reached beneath the podium, pulling out a single sheet of paper. He held it up high so cameras could catch the bold typeface across the top. "You know what this is? It's not my opinion. It's not a rally slogan. It's from the CDC, their own report, their own numbers. Autism rates, 1 in 36. Do you believe that?" 1 in 36 children in America, gasps spread through the audience. Supporters craned their necks, whispering furiously. Reporters scribbled, "Oh no, 1 in 36, CDC," across their pads. Trump shook the page lightly, his voice rising. "They don't like you to see this. They bury it in technical reports. They use complicated language, but it's right here. And the question is, why is it rising so fast?" The crowd rumbled with murmurs, tension growing thicker. Some supporters clapped loudly, others stayed frozen, caught between shock and curiosity. Trump jabbed his finger toward the cameras again. "And when you ask, when you demand answers, they tell you it's complicated. They tell you to trust the experts. But the experts don't want to admit they've failed, because if they admit it, they lose control. They lose money. They lose power." Reporters scribbled harder, some shaking their heads. One whispered to another, "He's turning a data point into a weapon." Trump leaned in, his tone sharper. "I'm not against science. I'm not against doctors, but I am against cover-ups, and I'm telling you tonight, families deserve straight answers, not redacted charts." The crowd erupted into fragmented cheers again, louder this time, angrier. A man shouted, "That's right!" A woman raised her phone and cried out, "Tell the truth!" The atmosphere grew electric, volatile. Even those who disagreed couldn't look away. The contradiction was clear. Trump wasn't just talking feelings anymore. He was waving paper, daring the establishment to deny it. On the broadcast feed, the camera zoomed tight on the document in his hand. Networks froze the frame. Analysts in newsrooms underlined the figure 1 in 36. Within minutes, producers prepared lower thirds. Trump cites CDC autism report live. The arena's energy flipped from chants to raw noise. Shock, anger, applause, disbelief all colliding at once. The statistic landed. The room shifted. The arena was no longer chanting in rhythm. The sound was jagged, messy, a mixture of applause, murmurs, gasps, and scattered cheers. What had started as another Trump rally now felt like a hearing under floodlights. Trump gripped the podium with one hand, the CDC report still raised in the other. His voice pressed harder, urgent but steady. 1 in 36, and if it keeps rising, what happens to America's future? What happens to families? What happens to the children who are supposed to carry this country forward? The crowd leaned in, silent now, caught in the seriousness of his words. Supporters who had come expecting chants and jokes now sat with brows furrowed, phones up but hands trembling. Trump jabbed his finger toward the press section. "They'll say I'm fear-mongering. They'll say I'm reckless. But tell me, if 1 in 36 kids had cancer, would they call it reckless to demand answers? Number. They'd call it a crisis." The audience erupted with applause, many rising to their feet. Reporters scribbled frantically, underlining, "If 1 in 36 had cancer." On stage, Trump's cadence changed again. "This isn't partisan. This isn't Republican or Democrat. This is about the survival of families. And it's about honesty. The people in Washington don't want honesty. They want silence. But silence isn't going to save a single child." The crowd roared louder, raw. The chants were gone, replaced by bursts of clapping, shouts, and a few sustains. Camera operators panned across the arena, capturing tear-streaked faces, parents nodding furiously, children held close against their mothers' shoulders. Patrons in the VIP rows whispered urgently, some into phones, others to staffers. Aides behind the stage traded nervous glances. Even seasoned reporters admitted in low voices, this is different. He's not riffing, he's hammering Trump. Let the silence linger for a moment, staring into the crowd. He lowered the paper, set it aside, and leaned closer to the mic. America can't afford silence anymore. The words hung heavy. The crowd was no longer simply attending a rally. They were witnessing a line that would leave the arena and live far beyond it. The arena was loud. The internet was louder. Within minutes of Trump's words, the clip was everywhere. 32 seconds long, shot from 3 different angles on cell phones. Trump holding up the CDC paper, his voice sharp over the microphone. If 1 in 36 kids had cancer, they'd call it a crisis. Why not this? Twitter exploded. The clip crossed 1 million views in less than 10 minutes. Hashtag spiked. Hashtag autism crisis. Hashtag Trump rally live. Hashtag 1 in 36. Supporters called it the bravest line of his career. Critics called it reckless. But both sides agreed it was the moment of the night. TikTok stitched the footage with slow motion edits. Bold captions flashed. 1 in 36. Dramatic soundtracks backed Trump's pause as the crowd gasped. Parents recorded emotional responses. Mothers in minivans, fathers in kitchens, whispering, finally, someone said it. Instagram reels cut between Trump's words and charts pulled from the CDC site. The visual contrast was undeniable. Side-by-sides filled feeds. Trump's raised hand, paper visible, the audience stunned into silence. Cable news scrambled to cover it. Fox ran the chyron. Trump calls autism rates a crisis. CNN countered. Trump's autism remarks sparked debate. MSNBC tried to soften. Autism rates, Trump stokes fear at rally. But no matter the framing, all networks replayed the same clip. Trump's pause, the number 1 in 36. Podcasts pushed emergency episodes. Conservative hosts praised his courage. Liberal commentators warned of politicizing families' pain. Yet all agreed this wasn't a line that would vanish. It was a fire. Late-night shows tried to joke about it, but even laughter felt strained. One host quipped, Trump says 1 in 36, maybe he counted his cabinet meetings. The audience laughed, but when the raw clip replayed, the laughter faded. The seriousness outlasted the punchline. In homes across the country, parents texted the clip to each other. Group chats filled with comments. Did you see this? He actually said it. Finally, someone talks about our kids. By dawn, the line wasn't just a moment. It was a movement. Memes, arguments, debates, and headlines all pointed back to the same frame. Trump, paper raised, crowd stunned. The paper was down, the faces were up. As the applause finally ebbed, the camera operator swung away from Trump and into the crowd. What they captured wasn't the usual rhythm of red hats and waving flags. It was raw, unfiltered reaction. Families weeping quietly, young men staring stone-faced, parents holding their children tighter. In the front rows, one mother wiped her eyes as she whispered to the woman next to her, "That's my son. That's my life right there." Her friend nodded, her own hand clutching a folded photo she'd carried in her purse. A veteran stood stiff, arms crossed, jaw tight. He didn't cheer or clap, but his stare at the stage carried its own weight. Reporters noticed, scribbling notes. Emotion in faces, not chance. Even in the press pit, the shift was undeniable. A correspondent whispered to his cameraman, he broke the script tonight. This wasn't about politics anymore. The cameraman just nodded, his lens locked on a father in the stands holding up a handmade sign, 1 in 36 is my child. On stage, Trump didn't smile. He didn't riff. He let the silence breathe, feeding the weight of the moment. His usual habit of banter was gone. For once, he stood almost solemn, scanning the arena as if measuring the impact not by decibels, but by eyes. Then he spoke again, softer than before. You all know somebody. Every family does, and it's not fair to stay silent any longer. The crowd murmured in agreement. No chance this time. Just nods, tears, whispers. The reaction itself was the answer. Even critics who despised Trump admitted the shift. One analyst tweeted live, "I've covered 50 rallies, never seen a room turn like this." He stunned them. The emotional climax wasn't in his words. It was in the crowd's faces. The silence, the shock, the reluctant acknowledgement, the grief, the raw applause, all of it combined into a verdict louder than any chant. The rally didn't end with chants. It ended with a line. Trump leaned forward on the podium, both hands gripping the sides. His voice dropped low, deliberate. "For too long they've told you not to talk about it. For too long they've told you to stay quiet, but I won't, and neither should you. Because the future of America depends on the children of America, and we cannot lose them." The arena froze. No chants, no slogans, no music. Just silence. The kind that lingers heavier than thunder. Trump paused, scanning the sea of faces, then gave his final line. 1 in 36, remember that number. And remember who finally said it. The crowd erupted. Some clapping wildly, others wiping their faces, others simply stunned. But the silence that had hung before the eruption would be the moment etched into memory. He stepped back from the podium, waved once and left the stage. No jokes, no music cue, just that single number echoing in the air. Was Trump brave to break the silence on autism, or reckless to turn it into a rally bombshell? Tell me in the comments below. Don't forget to hit subscribe because the next clash will be even bigger.